to the Positive Persistence Podcast. I am your host, Ian Bowen, and I am really excited to invite Betsy Kwiatkowski to the show. Betsy and I met about 2 years ago at a Fit Body Bootcamp Mastermind event in Nashville, I believe. And we're going to talk a little bit about Fit Body Bootcamp and fitness and being an entrepreneur today, because that is part of Betsy's story. But what I really want to get into is all of the things that Betsy has gone through up to this point in her life, because Betsy is a mompreneur, which is a phrase I've heard recently, mother of three, and a successful entrepreneur. But what I want to share with you guys is Betsy's story. So Betsy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Betsy, we've kind of already touched on Fit Body Bootcamp. We're going to come back to that. But before I do ask you another question, I do want to give you some shine. So everybody, just because I think it's important to know that that year that we met in Nashville at that mastermind, I believe Betsy was also crowned the newcomer of the year brand wide by Fit Body Bootcamp. Was that right?
It was. We got Rookie of the Year, which was unexpected and awesome and never expected, just because your first year in owning a business is very challenging. As you know, you've been an ear of mine to just bounce some ideas off of. And yeah, never easy. Let's just say that. So it was a nice compliment to the hard work that we had given.
Yeah, that is awesome. And Betsy's boot camp is in Fishers, Indiana, which is south of us. We're in Chesterton. That's where my boot camp is located. So like I said, we'll come back to Fit Body Boot Camp and being a fitpreneur. There's another mashup word I like to use. But what I've learned recently, Betsy, in doing some work on myself, is that how we present ourselves as adults is really closely tied to the experiences that we have as children. So I'd kind of like to start there with your story. If you can take us back to when you were a child and kind of start from there and kind of bring us up to speed to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, I can go in lots of different directions, so guide me as needed. But I was born and raised in a small little farm town, middle of nowhere, Indiana, and loved every bit of it. I am the oldest of three, and being the oldest of three comes with, I think, because I have three kids, some responsibility and a want to be perfect in everything that you do. My parents set a really great foundation for who I am. My grandparents were a big part of that too. So starting as a youngster, I mean, I can remember being in the third grade and having memories of just having some anxiety of just being and wanting to be perfect for my parents, for my grandparents. And I think that is what maybe pushed me to have a bit of a drive in everything that I do from a very young age. And I would say, not knowing then what I know now is I thought I had a really easy cush life as a little girl and did not know some of the struggles that my parents were going through. I grew up loving sports, being in sports. I at a young age I thrived and excelled in basketball, and knew very early on as a fifth grader that it was probably going to take me somewhere. And knowing now as a mom and having conversations with my mom now of the time and effort and commitment that my parents gave me, also, the tough love that my dad also put on my shoulders. So we can go down that direction if you want, but just to give you a little bit of foundation, great family, oldest of three.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the tough love that your dad put on you. That's something that I can relate with. My dad was a type A personality, and everything needed to be a very certain way. And he had certain expectations, especially of me. Only child, being a boy, like he basically wanted me to be a carbon copy of him.
Yeah.
But he has certain expectations that he had for me. And when I look back to being a kid, I realized that he was actually, and this is something I learned recently, that he was setting himself up for frustration by putting his expectations on to me
Hmm.
instead of helping me kind of figure out my own path and my own goals.
Yeah.
Because when I didn't do what he expected me to do, then
Yeah.
friction. So that was my experience. Let's hear about how you experienced tough love from your father and how you defined that and how you dealt with that.
Yeah. So, I'll probably go back and forth between parenting just within our family, but really towards the sports side. And they mesh together, they blend together. But as I got through elementary school into middle school into high school, is kind of that middle school to high school transition is where my dad and I felt a lot of the pressure, a lot of the frustrations along with it, but the want to exceed his expectations. But also, my dad knew me well enough to where if he could criticize me just enough, it pushed me to a level of like, I'm going to prove you wrong. So a lot of what he did, I think, is because he knew there was a little bit of a boundary there that he could push that would help me be better. And so as a parent with kids in sports now, I find that line and understand where he was at. I can pull back a little bit because I was on the receiving end of it. He's one of 13 and was right stuck in the middle. And so there was always a fight and a scratch for everything in his life. And he had a hard upbringing. And so I don't think he knew any better. I was the first of the three that he had to learn through. But the conversations were very harsh. They were things like, you better quit, because if you don't quit, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not going to make it if you don't XYZ. um, if I didn't score 20 points in my basketball career, there was hell to pay when I got home. And in terms of verbalization, like,
Yeah.
I knew I was going to sit on the corner of our kitchen table and I was going to hear it. I was going to hear all of it. And I was going to watch my mom just try to be the buffer in between. And it wasn't like nasty. It was more of, you didn't do this, you could have done this. If you don't, you're not going to get to the end point. It was, kind of in your grill a little bit. And that went on for sixth grade through senior year of high school, all the time, for everything. There was a lot of comparing to people that were better than me because he knew I could be better than them. And I say this with as much humble as I can, but I just excelled in sports. And when it comes to tough love, my dad was definitely the one that knew how to press that on me. So after, whether it was a basketball game, a volleyball, softball, whatever it was, I knew, for example, if I didn't get 20 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, I was going to hear it from my dad. So, um, you know, uh, you go back and there's a specific corner in our kitchen. I knew where I was going to be. I knew where he was going to be. I knew where my mom was going to be. My mom is the buffer. My brother and sister are probably hiding somewhere, because I was going to get laid into in terms of, if you don't perform well, you are never going to make it. If you don't score this, if you don't play your heart out, you're never going to get to the next place. And so I knew at a young age what he was trying to tell me. He wasn't always the best at expressing it, but I
Sure.
did know it came from a very loving place, because my dad, he is a very loving guy. Now, I think I've already said it, but being one of 13, I knew the tough love that he experienced was horrendous. Horrendous. 70s, tough, aggressive love for mom and dad from all the siblings. And so I knew that he didn't always know how to verbalize things. And my mom helped me know that too. So they were good cop, bad
Right.
cop. They knew how to help. But tough love was something that I learned early on. And it didn't stop. It went on. I experienced a lot of upset going from high school to college. So I was lucky enough to earn a full ride scholarship for basketball at a D1 level in Cleveland, at Cleveland State in Cleveland, Ohio. Yay, go Vikes.
Hey.
And I experienced tough love in a whole other realm that my dad set me up for success. I was used to hearing certain things. I was used to getting somebody getting after me, and I had calloused a little bit. I will tell you that even in college, my mind would go back to that kitchen table, though. So we're probably still figuring out that as an adult. So I turned 40 here in a few days, and as a parent, I don't want my kids to have that kitchen table, you
All
know,
right.
memory.
Sure. So as you got to college and you talk about you kept experiencing that tough love, do you mean like from the coach? Is that where
Yeah.
you okay?
From coaches, from players. So, when you go from high school to college, you are low on the bottom,
Yeah.
and you've got seniors who are going to prove that you don't belong there. And
Right.
they're going to say things to you. They're going to be physical with you. They are going to get in your head emotionally, where, like, if you can't figure out how to confront that, you're not going to make it. Um, Hard. When I signed on to Cleveland State, and I would say this is probably one of the very first times in my life that I had to figure out how to be persistent in my life on something. So, um, big fish, small pond, high school. Now I'm a super small fish in a very large pond,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how to deal with that. One, two, my coach at the time was let go, and a new coach came in who did not know me, who did not recruit me, along with my other two incoming classmates, and so that was interesting. That specific coach wasn't the best coach in general, and so much so that my I fought and scratched to be in the starting lineup my sophomore year, and I made it. Was doing great. Had a great sophomore year, and then I don't know what happened. Junior year, new people came in, and this is where it got really hard in my life. If you're 18, 19 years old, this is a really tough place to be in, and got benched junior year, didn't see a
Oof.
lot of playing time.
Yeah.
I made a really bad decision in a game against West Virginia. I'll never forget it. We were losing. We had a girl that was getting ready to, like, she was on a roll, and our coach, long story short, called a timeout and drew up a play. But as a team, all of our teammates were like, "It's the wrong player shooting." So as a team, I was a point guard. We decided, no, X person is going to shoot the ball. Ended up working really well, but I got pulled and I got sat the rest of the year. And so it's in your head what's going on, fighting your way back. There was no way I was going to ever see the court again. That's a hard place to live in. And again, I had dad on the phone saying, all the things.
Yeah.
And into my senior year, the coach decided actually to release myself and four other teammates from the team. One had a torn ACL. Uh,
Oof.
Things were getting back together. And so that was a really rough spot in my life. You have a full ride, you're doing well, you're working really hard to fix mistakes that you've made as a youngster, blend in with a team, lead a team. I was a natural leader, and finding your voice going into your senior year. There's a lot of things that you're looking forward to,
Sure. A lot
and
of expectation.
lots of
Yeah.
expectation. It was a real. We had gotten on really good terms. The team was finally moving in a good direction, and it was the biggest blow that I could really ever think of. So I had some decisions to make: either weep and drown in my tears, or figure it out. And so I think because of the life that my family, like, prepared me for, to be honest, Ian, is
Yeah.
we just started making phone calls. My dad, my mom, myself, to all of the people that we knew. We were like, I will go try out wherever you need me to try out. And if somebody's looking for a point guard that's willing to work hard for a year, that's me. And so drove myself from Cleveland, Ohio to the Lincoln Memorial, that go from city to the hollers of Tennessee, Cumberland Gap. Major change there, tried out, made the team, and I went from D1 to D2, which is also a big blow to your ego.
Sure.
Uh, didn't have a whole lot of time to think about anything. And so I lost a scholarship, went and found a new scholarship, had to figure out how to be with new teammates, a new coach, earn trust. It was a hard 18 months of my life. And
Yeah,
so I'll pause there, but I would say like tough love carried me through that process.
I can't imagine the gut punch and the mental mind games that have to go on just alone with your ego alone, like getting benched, losing your scholarship. But what I am interested in asking you is like, what drove you to take action, right? Because for a lot of people, that would have been done. That's it. Like
Yeah.
this sucks. They would have gone into the what was me like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to finish out my senior year and that's
Yeah.
it. But you were driven to take action. And so I'm curious, like, what was it that did not allow you to be sidelined?
You know, a lot of my teammates did take that route, and that's okay. I don't like to lose, and I definitely like to prove people wrong. Um, and I think at the end of the day, that's built in you or it's not. You cannot teach that to somebody, but I had all odds stacked against me from a young age. I'm 5'4". I'm going up against at the time a Diana Taurasi, which is like the goat of the time in basketball. I mean, she's 6'4" or something crazy.
Yeah.
The odds are stacked against me. I was in a tiny little town. I didn't go to a big school. But I always had a chip on my shoulder to prove people wrong. And I always wanted to prove my dad wrong. I wanted to prove my mom wrong. I wanted to prove all the coaches that weren't nice to me wrong. And I think at that point, I had a decision to make of like, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like, you don't want me on your team, somebody else does. And I'm going to find those people. And at that point, it was just, we got to figure this out and we got to go. I don't know how to do life except for just figuring it out. And
Yeah.
that's so that was the big driver for me. And it hit me later, like when I was 25, that a same major pivotal point as a mom, that we can talk about too, in
Hmm.
terms of hardships and moving through it forward. But I would say just proving people wrong, like you're not going to tell me what my destiny is, don't box me in.
Yeah,
Don't box me in.
absolutely.
So yeah.
So it sounds like you, being raised, you really earned a PhD in FIO.
Yeah.
Like, figure it out. Like, if
Yeah.
things aren't going your way, then let's figure out a way to make it go my way.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
like, it almost sounds like well, it does sound like you've been groomed to make life happen for you and not
Mhm.
just let life happen to you.
Oh, without a doubt. And my mom and I would say my grandpa have a big role in that too. My mom would pound that into me too. Like you can do, like you're gonna figure this out. We'll figure this out. We're gonna keep moving forward. To this day, she's still like that for me. My grandpa was the same way. He was a Marine. He was a police officer. He was very tough on me too. Yes, sir. No, sir. Stand up, hustle on, hustle off. You're early. You're not late. He instilled the right things that I think that a lot of our current state is missing. And
Hmm.
so I've carried that on with me just because I got to receive that. I was a lucky one. I got to have people surrounding me that taught me the right way to live.
Right. And
You know,
that's really helped formulate your mindset currently.
sure.
Let me ask you a question. Do you feel that the characteristics that you have now, the mindset that you have now, is reserved for specific people, or do you think that anybody can tap into that drive and that fire within them to FIO and push back against the resistance of whatever stands in front of them?
Yeah, I think everybody has that in them. I think people are either scared to tap into it,
Hmm.
so they just sit back and wait for life to happen. But I think everybody can find a way to figure something out. You have to make the decision to find it or not. And those who make the decision to find it. And it might take a certain person longer. It might take a certain person a shorter period of time. I mean, that goes into business. You know, you and I own the same type of business and the
Hmm.
same brand. And you and I both know that the dogs, the people that are going to fight and figure it out, sometimes figure it out faster than others, but that you still fight through it and you still figure it out, right? Versus those who can't. And that's okay, but you wish you could help them figure out how to tap it in. And it's really just making a decision of I'm going to do this and then go.
Yeah.
You have to say that. You know,
Right.
this kind of plays into what I was going to say. So when I was pregnant with my first Graham, he was born, and a week later, my husband and I got a call. Hey, we need from the pediatrician. Hey, we need you to come in. We've got to talk about some test results. And we're like, that's not good.
Like,
Okay.
okay.
That's not good.
Right.
You know immediately. There's a thing when you're a parent that you know there's a certain tone going on. So,
Hmm.
um, new mom, lots of hormones going on, postpartum, not knowing what's going on, and walk in, and the guy was terrible bedside manners, but he sat us down, and Graham's 7 days old, and said, "Hey, listen, Graham tested positive for cystic fibrosis." And in a full run on sentence says, most kids make it to 15. So we'll see how this goes. And I'm like, time out. What is cystic fibrosis? I don't know what that is. I've never heard of that. How does one get that? So can we start there? And then followed by, we're not statistic people. We're going to go ahead and put the work in, and we're going to beat the 15-year-old milestone. Okay.
Right.
So don't even plant that in my head. That was another pivotal moment of we're going to figure this one out. We are now in fight or fight mode for our son
Yeah.
who doesn't know what's going on. And so, for those who don't know what cystic fibrosis is, I mean, that's a genetic mutation that happens, and you get that directly from your parents. So both parents have to be carriers of this mutated gene. And it's kind of, you don't know that you have the gene, to be honest. It happens high in the Polish community and the Mexican community. We're both of those. And so didn't have a clue that we were carriers. So we ended up going down to Indianapolis to Riley Hospital. We found an excellent doctor. We actually went through like 6 different meetings to find the right doctor for us. Found one. She's amazing, Dr. Howenstein. And decided like we need to move from South Bend, Indiana to Indianapolis because we think we're going to have to be at Riley Hospital a lot. And so kids with CF usually can't move mucus through their organs very well in their lungs. They have some trouble with their pancreas, and they don't grow very well. They're usually smaller, skinnier type of build, and have breathing treatments, a breathing vest. It's a tough life to live, a very tough life to live. And in his first year, on paper, Graham should have been an extraordinarily sick child, but I'm a big believer in prayer and prayer chains and power of people. And I promise you, Ian, we 1000% were, we witnessed a miracle with Graham, because on paper, he has 2 very bad mutated genes and is a very healthy kid. Didn't have to do the chest
That's awesome.
vibrator. He's growing. He's in the 90th percentile. He continues to grow. We don't know what the future holds for him. We have to do yearly testing, but we're beating odds. And I really think that it came down to being persistent and finding the right doctor, finding the right advocate for your child, followed by the will of like, we ain't losing this one. Like, this
Yeah.
is not happening. And so, followed by honestly just power of prayer for us and our family and our faith, and how we got through that time. And so here we are. But, right when you feel like you're getting knocked down, you got to figure out how to get up.
Yeah. So it sounds also like when that doctor gave you that diagnosis, you weren't not going to allow someone
Mm-mm.
else's perception of what was possible become your reality.
Correct. There's no
You
way.
Yeah, you just decided, nope, that's not for us. We're
No,
going this route.
correct.
And then you just made that decision and you
Yes,
decided in advance what the outcome was going to be,
absolutely.
no matter what.
No matter what, we're
Like,
figuring this one out.
you were going to do whatever it took to make
Yeah,
sure that your son had the best care possible and the best chances possible
yeah,
to lead a full life.
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what his destiny is. I know God's got a great plan for him, but it is my job as his mom and and his dad. It's our job to give him the opportunity to get the best care, to get the best everything. We can't sit back for him at this point. We're fighting for he's a week old.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what he's doing. So we got to figure that out for him. And so like we were going to do everything that we could physically here to make sure that he was taken care of. Yeah.
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 God, I love just hearing about your tenacity and your mental toughness, which I'm sure that you are embedding in your children as you raise them.
Yep.
And
Right.
that speaks to why you are just a beast, especially when it comes to business, which we'll come to in a minute.
Yeah.
But I want to rewind a little bit. So now you've gone to college,
Hmm.
graduated.
Hmm.
What's next?
Ooh, good question. So I had a $5,000 loan, okay, which I know is like pennies compared to what some have to go through. But that was huge for me.
Yeah, for
I'm like, how
sure.
am I going to pay this off?
Right.
So it was like, we got to find a job ASAP. And my mom was a dental assistant for, gosh, 30 years or so. And I remember I was about a week out of college. I was home living, trying to figure it out. And was at her dental office and I saw a sales rep and I was like, huh, I could do that. I could talk to doctors. I can, that's interesting. So I went and introduced myself to her. Turns out she was the owner of the small dental business. And I got her name and her number and I called her and said, hey, I think I'd be a great sales rep for you. Can I come interview? She was like, not looking. I was like, great, I'll still come in for the future. Maybe you're going to need somebody in a year from now. She was like, I don't have time. And then I was like, hey, a week later, just in case you need somebody to work for you, I'm looking and I'm very capable of what you're doing. She was like, for God's sakes, lady. So she brought me in for an interview like 2 weeks later, and I ended up getting a job. And I was a
Wow.
sales rep in dental, made my first big bonus check like in the first 3 months, and I paid my loan off. So it was like, that's what I'm doing. I didn't spend it. I saved every penny and I put everything to it because I didn't want to burden my parents with asking them for help. I was like, I will figure this out for us. Like, you don't have to pay that. They didn't have any money, they're trying to get two other kids in college. And so, uh, again, I just being persistent and nagging and saying, my mom always used to tell me, I'm going to totally mess this up. But the loudest, what is it? The loudest.
The squeaky wheel gets
Yeah,
the
that.
grease.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She would
Yeah.
tell me that all the time. And so she would say, just keep calling, keep texting, wait, don't stop until they answer the phone. I'm like, all right, great. So that's what I did.
That
Um,
is amazing. What did you study in school?
so I started out at Cleveland State. I was going to be an audiologist. I was in the deaf community. I love the deaf community. I could sign really well for a long time. Got through some clinicals. And then when I had to make the change down to Lincoln Memorial, there was nothing there for me. So I ended up graduating with a communications degree, but I really, really wanted to be a speech therapist or an audiologist at the time. And what I just said
So,
actually happened, and I didn't go back to try to figure that out because life happened. I worked for this company, Midway Dental Supply, and that's where I met my husband. So he was my first co-travel, and it was like, well, I don't want to go back to school for speech pathology or audiology. I've met somebody that I kind of want to see. I want to see what this is about. And then yeah, the rest is kind of history there.
so just so I'm clear, with
Yeah,
no sales experience,
no.
with no education in dental hygiene or anything
No,
like that.
no.
You are basically continually cold calling this
Yeah,
woman and saying, I want a job. I want a
yeah,
job. I want a
yeah,
job. I
pretty
want a job.
much.
Man,
Yep.
what a testament to positive persistence. Like you were literally not taking no for an answer.
Yeah, can do it. I needed the money.
And you were just like,
This is my end.
hire me, hire
Yeah,
me,
you're the
hire me.
owner. There's nobody else I'm going to interview in the next 6 months. That's the owner. You're hiring me. So,
Wow.
yeah, this is what's going to go down.
So she hires you on,
Yeah.
and in a matter of months,
Yes.
you're killing it and you make a bonus check.
Yeah, I made a bonus check and I was able to pay my loan off. And so for me,
Wow.
it was like a big sense of relief. So now I could potentially move out of my parents' house. I could have my own life, and I did that very quickly. I think it was anywhere between 3 and 6 months after college. I, you know, was on my own, and it was lovely. It was great.
And so now you're in the dental sales business
Hmm.
and you're doing that for how long?
So crazy. So I was in the dental business, the dental field for nearly 15 years, and moved up the corporate ladder quite a bit. I Same lady. So my husband and I worked for the same company, and we ended up when we moved down to Indy for Graham. There was a Midway branch down here that we begged and pleaded that we could run the branch for her, for this lady who's a friend of ours now, obviously. And we were like, we can do this. We know everything to do. Like, let us run this for you. And we did. And then found out that I was the branch manager, and I wasn't able to take the boss hat off at home while also married to somebody that worked there. So I ended up moving away from Midway and worked for a more corporate sort of job selling dental implants. I could tell you a lot about sitting in surgeries, and I worked my way up. I was always, in the top 10 of every company that I was in. I didn't like people not, and maybe this stems back to childhood. Now I'm actually saying it out loud, but I didn't like the feeling or people looking at me saying she's not the best. I didn't like that. And so that
Yeah.
was a big driver in everything that I did. I did
Hmm.
not like being second best. I hated it. I still hate it. Like, it makes me cringe that our boot camp's not at the top of the list right now. Like, I don't like that feeling. I want to always be the best. And it's not always, life shows you that that's not always true. Um, but yeah, so I don't know where I was going with, I don't know. So I was with a corporate for a while. And
Hmm.
then after I had my third child, I was, I'm just going to say, in my mind, I painted myself as big and ugly. We got some problems. I was this D1 athlete. I'm looking in the mirror post third child. We do not look or feel the way that she should.
Not liking what you
And
saw in the mirror.
did not like
Okay.
anything that I saw in the mirror. And
Yeah.
so I got myself a personal coach he was in Arizona. And I worked out every day in my basement. I ate right for a year. I dropped a lot of my weight and decided I'm going to help other moms do the same thing, because nobody should feel as low as I was feeling ever. And if I can do it, you can do it. So it's when I started my online fitness journey, and then quickly realized 2 years into that, like, I need to be nose to nose, toes to toes, and decided that brick and mortar was the way for us. That was the only way that I could feel whole. And that's what we've been doing for 3 years is
So
that.
along the way on your fitness journey,
Uh-huh.
you had a transformation of your own
Huge transformation
and felt that you wanted to help other women just like you
for
that were
sure.
in that same boat. So you
Yes.
then became certified
Yep.
as a personal trainer. How that was the kind of the course.
Yep. So while I was doing my dental job on the side, I was studying to become a certified personal trainer, getting some macro coaching certifications, getting in groups, getting in masterminds to like figure it out. And yeah, that's what that's what led me to Fit Body. But my transformation was a big transformation. I was always like just to give people a reference, 5'4", 150. 70 pounds of muscle, usually like 22% body fat was always the body that I was in. I was strong and sturdy, as I like to tell people. And I after my third, so after Paige, actually, I'm going to say topped out at 232. I was huge. For my stature,
Mm,
I was big for who I used to be.
yeah.
And, yeah, that took me years to get down to where I felt comfortable again. And that was not an easy process.
Right.
I hated myself along the way. And so now, as you train others, my big goal is to not hate yourself along the way like I did. Don't make that same mistake. And yeah, that's where we're at.
So along your fitness journey,
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's ups and downs along that journey.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the things that helped you? And I don't mean to put words into your mouth. I'm just speaking on my own fitness journey,
Sure.
knowing that there were times where I had those pity parties, or I felt like, man, this is insurmountable. Like this is
Yeah.
really hard, and I
Yeah.
felt like I didn't want to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that, first of all, did you have those times? Did you have those periods?
Uh, every day.
So what was it that helped you through those things and kind of flip the switch and turn the tide to get you back on track to doing the things that you knew you needed to do to continue to move forward and succeed?
So I would say first and foremost is fine. For me, it was finding a coach.
Hmm.
I needed help. I thought I knew how to do it, but to be honest, if you don't have somebody there with you, like holding you accountable, it's just going to take triple the amount of time. And so for me, it was just finding a coach. And then the second part to that was now I need to find a community of other women that are better than me because I need to know that it's possible. And so I got into little small groups that I found for free, on Facebook of following. I
Hmm.
found people that I enjoyed following on social media. I enjoyed. I got really into 75 hard back in 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. And I learned a lot about myself through that. Discipline was a big one, but reading really helped me stay on course and finding things that motivated me. It's different for everybody. How people ask you, like, hey, I'm a big runner, like I'm an ultra marathon runner. You're a big runner. People always ask, what shoes do you wear? It doesn't matter because they're not the shoes for you. Like, you need to go to a store and let them watch your stride and they'll put you in the shoe that you need to be in.
Right.
I think it's the same thing for books. Always people talk about, hey, what book would you recommend? I don't know because I don't know what motivates you. For me, though, I read Jesse Itzler's books. I read Goggins' books, and I realized that everybody else had a much harder life than I did. Why am I crying about it? I have a pretty cush life compared to many others. Like, it's my responsibility to do my best. And so those are some drivers for me. But I would
Yeah.
say if I had to pick one out of all of them, it was like finding a coach, and not just for a short period of time. Like, I had him for 2 years and I never saw him in person. We did this, we talked
Yeah.
on Zooms. But that's what the key ingredient was for me. And having support from my husband was a big one too.
Absolutely. Having support is huge. So you go from being in the dental sales business to deciding, you know what? I think I want to become an entrepreneur and start my own business.
Wild.
Yeah. And not only that, moving into a male dominated industry.
Uh-huh.
And so was it just like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do this. What was the thought process for you to move into this fitness space of owning your own gym?
So it was a I can remember the defining moment, but there was something that led up to it. Is I was what everybody talks about, the gold handcuffs. Uh Dental, without a shadow of a doubt, gave me the opportunity to live a specific lifestyle that I love. Okay.
Mhm.
But there were some things that it stole from you too. Happiness,
Oh,
emptiness, you know, hitting a number to hit a number and then the next day to have a manager tell you what's in your pipeline. Like after 15 years of that, it was like, why am I doing this? I'm not actually giving anything to society. Like I'm hitting a number to hit a number to hit a paycheck, but like am I actually like enjoying my life? Am I able to help somebody else along the way? And the answer was like, no. And so then I had to really like dive into what was making me feel like I was giving something. And it was what I was doing on the side with a small group of women along the way of helping them through their transformations. And so that's where it kind of started. And then when I covered Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio, that was my territory. I was a windshield warrior, and that gave me time to listen to podcasts, a lot of them. And it was like podcast after podcast of don't do things that make you feel empty anymore, you know? And I was like, I'm in the wrong car right now. Like I need to be over in the fitness field. That's what I'm good
yeah.
at. And that's where I feel like I'm giving the most. And so why am I here and not there? Well, the money, it came down to money. You know, fitness is not easy.
No, it's not.
There is not a lot of money in the beginning at
Mhm.
all.
Mhm.
So I went from a high six-figure job, a paid car, a gas card, a lifestyle for my kids and my husband to nothing for one reason is to give to my community, to feel like I'm offering and giving what my skill sets are in a better way in hopes that the future will pay off.
Right.
So it goes back to like I'm figuring it out along the way. So we're only like,
FIO.
you know, we're figuring it out. And so I was driving from Indianapolis to Detroit one morning. You know, I would leave at 4 a.m. so I could get back to put the kids to bed. And so for reference, it's a 6 hour drive from where I'm at to Detroit,
Yeah.
and it would be for like 2 meetings to come all the way back home. And so I was driving on 69, headed up to Fort Wayne, and I heard Bedros talk about Fit Body. And at the time, I was looking at an F45, and I went skirt, stopped, pulled over. He had said something that just hit on the right time at the right, you know, right day. And I called Jason, my husband, and said, I'm quitting my job and we're going to start a Fit Body. And he was like, why don't you come home?
Yeah. That is a big decision.
I said, I'm coming home and I'm not going to work today. And so I came home, and that was the beginning of Fit Body. I was like, this is what we're doing. I'm not getting in that car again to go there. I'm not doing it. I'm done. I had made my mind up. There was no way you're getting me back into the dental field for that specific role. And so, you know, 3 months later, we signed an agreement with Fit Body, and the rest is history.
And
Like,
off you were
yeah.
to the races,
Yes.
going a million miles an hour,
Yeah.
which is why
Right.
you were newcomer of the year.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it sounds like during these long drives, you were able to rediscover your purpose
Yeah.
and be able to take steps to actually fulfill the thing that gave you fulfillment.
Yes, for sure. And just give me time to think and process, you know, everything. To pray a lot, to think a lot, to sit in silence a lot, to dream. I'm a big dreamer. You know, I think it's why I enjoy running. It's when I get to be my most creative in my mind. I carry my phone and I talk notes into my phone when I'm
Mhm.
running. I get clarity doing that. And at the time when you're on the road for 10 hours at a time, you have a lot of time to think.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was just like, I know what I'm doing right now is not right. It doesn't feel good. I know I'm done. I've exhausted this. It's time to move on. And I was willing to take the risk of maybe this is a totally bad decision. But history shows we figure it out, you know? So
Yeah.
you know, I think that's, you know, and that's something that, you know, we're currently going through. We're trying to be our best while figuring it out.
Right. And you have shown that you are a survivor. You have shown
Mm.
that you excel at figuring it out. So if going back to being a child
Mhm.
in sports, wanting to please your parents, wanting to please your dad, going into college, being up against it in that scenario where you lost your scholarship, you had to find, make a new way.
Yeah.
You didn't wait for it to come to you. You found a new
Yeah.
way
Hmm.
to basically forcing your way into the dental industry
Hmm.
and getting a job and then crushing it there and then deciding to just hop in with both feet into becoming an entrepreneur, which we haven't even scratched the surface on all the pitfalls and obstacles that you have to deal with on starting your own business and owning your own business and running your own business and those things. But what I'd like to know and what I'd like for you to share with our audience is do you think, the one core value that has been the constant for you that's been able to get you through all those sticky situations, get you through those hard times, be able to propel you forward in the face of adversity?
Uh, my faith, like I'm gonna do right by him no matter what.
Hmm.
Period. End of story. And I know that together, you know, God's got a plan for me and he's going to help me see it through. So somebody said, if God gave it to you, he put it in you to see it through. So I know that if these ideas are coming to me and I'm praying on it and I'm thinking about it, or if I'm going through a really hard time and I'm talking about it and I'm praying about it, that means he planted a seed in me that he's going to help me see it through. And so I always come back to that.
Yeah,
I always come back to that one little conversation. So I don't know if you can call that a core value, but that is the one thing that I always come back to keep me on the right path, steady, focused in, because it's very easy to fall off. I would say being honesty is definitely something that is a core value of ours. Being honest with yourself, being honest with your family and your team that you're leading. I would say honesty, if we lead with that, always keeps us true to what we should be doing. If you want to, I guess, put that into a core value.
sure.
Yeah, I would say. And then probably integrity. Got to keep integrity at the forefront of everything that you do.
Would you say it's also fair, and not necessarily your core value, but those conversations that you say that you've had and throughout your life that you have to be paying attention
Yeah.
to be able to receive those messages and then be able to put them into action?
Yeah, and I think, you have to have strong people around you. And I can use you as an example. I often call you and your wife. And I'm like, what? I'm going 1,000 miles a minute. And our 5 minute conversation turned into 65 minutes for real. And, you guys are there to help remind me. And so, but I have to listen and I have to pay attention. I can tend to be a bit of a parrot and kind of go all over the place, which is why you have to give yourself some time to have some silence. And I've learned that hard lesson many times. You got to sit in some silence daily because you can get off track so fast.
Is that a part of your practice?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I start every morning with silence.
Yeah.
Every morning, and actually, it's just a little thing that I do. We're 8 minute drive from my door to Fit Body, and I allow myself 8 minutes of pure quiet. No music, no nothing. I sit there. It usually ends in a prayer before I walk into Fit Body. Is where and it's only 8 minutes, but 8 minutes of silence is hard. 3 minutes of silence is hard, but I give myself that drive every single day. That is my routine of
Mhm.
silence and gratitude and walking through, some hardships in my mind, that these conversations that you have, and ending it with something of like, but we got this. We're going to move forward today. And that's it. That's all you can do. We live in a world where I feel like there's a lot of kids that need to hear that message. It's a very noisy world that we live in, and these kids have everything at their fingertips, but there's so much chatter and chaos on social media. There's so much noise. If everybody could just practice a little bit of silence every day, you could probably get a little more grounded.
100%. And I love the fact that you are taking time for yourself. And like you said, it's just 8 minutes.
Mhm.
Like you're taking time for yourself just to be silent
Yeah.
and just to kind of sit in it.
Mhm.
But you end with, we got this.
Yeah,
So you end on a good note of positivity, and you have already acknowledged that, yep, there's life is hard.
it is. It's
Like
meant to be
you,
hard.
yeah, and you expect it to be difficult,
Yeah.
right? Like you just said, it's not meant to be easy. It's going
No.
to be hard. But at
Right.
the end of the day, you have the confidence in yourself to know that no matter what comes, I got this.
Yeah, exactly. Because tragedy hits all the time. And I used to have honestly, I used to have a mindset of like, when's the other shoe gonna drop?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a heavy burden to carry around every day. When's the
Hmm.
other shoe gonna drop? When am I
Hmm.
getting hit with cancer? When am I getting hit with this? I've oftentimes had the conversation with my mom. My mom and I are very close of, Mom, I've had such a good life. When's the shoe going to drop? And she's like, do you forget the hardships that you've gone through? And I'm like, yes, but also she'll remind me, but like history shows that you're like, no matter what your process, you're going to get through it, and you're like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Even if one day when tragedy hits, you're going to be able to get through it, and you have to accept that. You have to accept that things are going to happen. And it
Hmm.
is your responsibility to get through it, to get through it. And you can either smile through it, you can cry through it, you can weep over it. I tend to have all of the emotions. I weep, I cry, I get mad, and then we move forward. Like there's this whole, like I can almost just expect it. Jason knows when it's going to happen. If I'm crying, he knows I'm about to weep, and then he knows I'm going to get mad, and then we move forward. And then it's like this day full of emotion,
Yeah.
and then we're good. So,
Right.
yep.
If you were talking to your kids, like you just said, like your mom gave you some amazing advice. And so I want to kind of wrap up our conversation. I feel like we could talk all day
Yeah.
for sure. I know we could. But I want to wrap up our conversation with giving our audience some advice that could be tangible for them to use to help them get through whatever they're dealing with, whatever adversity is in front of them. And like if you were talking to your children, like your mom giving you some awesome advice, what would you tell your kids would be like the thing to always come back to when they face adversity, when time gets tough? What would you tell them to do, how to deal with it?
The first thing that I would recommend or tell my kids, and I do, is never sit in silence. If you are feeling something, whether it's happy, sad, confusion, you're going down a deep, dark hole, whatever it is, do not sit in silence on that because no one can help you if you're silent. You have to talk about it. So I would say you have to talk. Don't sit in silence. Number one. Number two, I would say you got to find a stronger faith in something. For me, it's my relationship with God and what we have. It's for somebody else, it could be something else. But you got to find that thing that brings the best out of you and that can push you forward. For me, that's my faith. And so for my kids, it's always like you got to bring it back to center. Like you're going to talk about it with me. We're going to talk out loud. We're going to get a plan going. And we're going to help you through this because there's a way out. There's a better way out than what you think there is. It will be better on the other side, but you have to work through it. If you don't, you're going to be miserable and you're going to make bad decisions along the way. And you got to find that center point for you. Mine is faith. So I would tell people you got to you got to have a stronger faith.
Awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's going to listen to that, but that's what I do.
Well, hey, it works for you
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, Betsy, I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for your time. Tell us again the name of your boot camp.
Fisher's Fit Body Boot Camp, and we're on the east side of Indianapolis. You can find us at Fisher's Fit Body Boot Camp on all the things.
On all the things.
All the things.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Betsy. Really appreciate you being here and enlightening us with your story. And, even though that I know you, now I know more about you, and I'm even more impressed.
Well, right
by
back
you,
at you.
for
Thank you
sure.
for having me.
Absolutely. So, Betsy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us today. That is a wrap, family. Once again, this is the Positive Persistence Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Bowen. And if you like something that you heard today, it resonated with you, or you think someone else can benefit from it, please like and share the podcast. Go ahead and subscribe so you can get alerts to upcoming podcasts. Also, go to our website where you can subscribe for our newsletter, check out our blog, and follow us on all of our socials. So until next time, everybody, stay positive, stay persistent. We'll see you next time.